There are car enthusiasts and driving enthusiasts in this world. Car enthusiasts more interested in 750 horsepower, $3 million supercars, while driving enthusiasts are looking for an emotion, a feeling, an experience. I like to think that both can be combined. I myself consider myself both a driving and car enthusiast. And well, because I'm poor, and most driving enthusiasts are poor, most anyway, we usually end up in the sport compact car segment. I myself have owned many of them. And over the last, well, many years of my career, I've driven nearly all of them. In fact, just recently, I've driven a number of them. Of the many reasons why these two are being compared in this brief comparison test is that only $900 separate the new 2022 Subaru WRX from the new 2022 Jetta GLI. In fact, $30,995 makes the WRX one of the greatest bargains in the segment, and this one is only $31,895, making it one of the greatest bargains in the segment as well. Let's focus a little bit more on the RX. If you look at it quickly, you can tell that it's a WRX. I mean, visually it hasn't changed that much from the car it replaces, which was introduced, if I'm not mistaken, in 2014 for the 2015 model year. Yes, there are some significant differences in the rear. Yeah, the bumper is very different. The taillight treatment is revised. The most noteworthy, or is that bitching worthy, are the flares, which is interesting because on my test unit, which is magnetite gray, they kind of blend in with the background. I'm thinking maybe Subaru Canada had planned it that way. But overall, once you're in presence of the car, you do appreciate what it is because it is immediately a WRX. One of the greatest things about the WRX is that it can be used as a family car. And that's probably one of these two cars' greatest assets. I mean, compared to a Nissan Z or a Toyota Supra, you can't do that. You can't have your thrills and bring the family along. Whereas with this car, well, there you go. There's proof, right? There's the pudding right there. Okay, so I mentioned $30,995 for the base car. Now this happens to be a Sport Tech with 3 pedals, obviously. So it retails for around $39,000. But the funky thing is that it doesn't have as much equipment as the $31,895 GLI. But what you can see are the sport seats with the ultra suede inserts. They are fantastic, very grippy, very comfortable. I mean, if you know anything about Subaru, you'll recognize the steering wheel, the grip, the shape, the size. Now, on the inside, compared to the base car, what you do also get with the Sport Tech package is an 11.6-inch touchscreen display. Now, if I start it up, admittedly, as it loads up, it is probably one of this car's weakest points. Most, if not all, of the menus are only available via the screen. So your home button and the HVAC controls. You do have temp controls and defrost front and rear. Thankfully a couple of knobs, but otherwise everything else has to go through the screen, which does make, how can I put it, it takes a lot of concentration to negotiate, to navigate through those menus. That's one of the downsides. Otherwise, the seating position is fantastic. I like to drive very close, and the shifter is so Subaru. The notchiness, just a feel. It looks like it's lifted out of the last STI. It's superb. One of the best things about this car, as I close the door, is visibility. Look at that. That is when you're, when you're in opposite lock and you're looking at the next corner, you can see right at it. It's pretty amazing. Everything else about the car feels Subaru WRX. I've owned one, I've driven them all, and it is fantastic in a word. but I'm not done yet. I'll have to tell you a little bit more about the drive. Well, suffice it to say that it drives like a Subaru. So let's go over to the GLI now. And now on to the GLI. So, like I said, GLI pricing starts at $31,895, and it only comes one way, and that's fully loaded. Now, while we're staring at the front of the GLI, I mean, maybe out of the corner of your eye on the screen, you can see the RX. Styling-wise, both are, yeah, I guess I could say okay. I mean, I've been known to be a little bit of a fanboy of Volkswagens, and I do love me a Subaru WRX. I can't say that either are very attractive in comparison. If I was to say, the new Civic Si is far better put together visually. It's more subtle. Typically subtle is what the Germans do, but they kind of didn't go there with the GLI, with the 7th generation as a whole of the Jetta, in my opinion. Okay, so fully loaded. So what does that mean? That means that you get standard 18-inch wheels, which are only included with upper trims in the WRX. So you do get 17s in the base car. Now, as you come around in the Jetta, you get sport leather seats, which are heated, by the way, in both rows, which is optional in this car, standard in this one, that are also cooled. That's right. You get an 8-inch display. Okay, not as big as the 11.6-inch display in the WRX, but you do get a 10.25-inch digital IP. So I'm going to get in it and start it up. This is a very, okay, we'll let her, okay, yes, we know the engine run. This is a very, very different environment. This is what we would call a premium environment. You have actual HVAC controls and knobs. You have an easy to work infotainment display. Everything is really at hand. See, the task here is cruising and enjoying life. Whereas the WRX, like I said, it's, you know, opposite lock to the next corner. That's what that car was designed for. And that's what I mean. I'm going to shut it off because petrol is still very expensive. Oh, and by the way, it's a Jetta, right? So that means a capacious back seat. On both have pretty good trunks, which hover around more or less 400 liters. So family duty, aka Costco trips, are assured in both cars. Now the biggest difference between the two cars, that $900, that's a small difference, but it's what you get between the two as far as mechanicals are concerned. As you probably know, the Jetta is front-wheel drive, 2-liter turbo. The WRX is obviously all-wheel drive, 2-liter turbo, 6-speed manual in both cases. But they couldn't be any more different behavior-wise. So you might have guessed it at this point, it's time to go for a spin. Alrighty then, as I take off in the updated Mark 7.5 2022 Jetta GLI, I mean, I just stepped out of the WRX to get into this car, and they could not be more similar and more different at once. The Jetta GLI is designed as, and I hesitated to say hello FD, did you see that? Designed to be an Audi A3 substitute. And if you ask me, it's a better car than the A3 because of the equipment, because of the performance, because of everything you get right here. I mean, under the bonnet as standard is a turbocharged 2-liter. We all know the turbocharged 2-liter engine from Volkswagen. It produces 228 horsepower at 6,500 RPM, 258 pound-feet of torque, or it tops out at 4,000 RPM, which means that this car, which is relatively light at about 3,275 pounds, I mean, this is a 6-second car with the manual transmission, which makes it lively. It's not fast, but it's very lively. The most entertaining, as I wait at a stoplight again, because yay traffic, the most entertaining part of this car is, well, the torque. The torque is just exceptional. It's almost always available, and when you roll onto the throttle, it kicks in and off you go. And there's essentially what I'm trying to say, that it's a substitute Audi A3, is that it is extremely refined. I'm just in the level of equipment offered. That's my bottle that's making that rattling noise. Just in level of equipment, I pointed out, the heated and cooled front seats, they're leather covered, they're heated in the back, and that's all in the standard car. One of the key things, I didn't show you the drive mode button, but I'm just going to go into comfort. One of the key things is the dynamic chassis control with the adaptive dampers. That's what elevates this car above almost all others as far as comfort, ease of use is concerned, and just pleasurable cruising. I mean, compared to, say, a Civic Si, the Civic Si is downright punishing compared to this, but it caters more to the WRX crowd than the Jetta GLI crowd. In fact, the Jetta GLI is essentially on its own when it comes to refinement as being the first reason for existing. Look, the 6-speed manual, oh, that torque, it's just so stupid. It's just so effortless and easy. It's always, or it feels like it's always available. I mean, the gearing is just perfectly sorted to the 2-liter engine. Brake pedal is strong, it's firm. As soon as you get on it, the brakes bite and you're gonna come to a stop. It's very reassuring, it's comforting, it's luxurious. I mean, as an everyday performance car, where you can actually have fun and bring the family along, or trips to Costco, like I said, or trips to the in-laws, can be enjoyable because you will seek out, as many country roads as you can possibly find. And through the drive modes, again, I mean, you can play and customize your own drive modes, or you set the dampers and whatever you want, and it's such an easy, smart choice. I mean, as far as downsides are concerned with this car, I kind of touched on it. It's not a WRX or a Civic Si, where it is far more involving than most all other non-sport compact cars. It's more luxurious than almost all of them as well, better equipped. But it doesn't give you the fizzes like, say, a Mark IV GLI may have, or like my Mark II GTX GLI, well, once did when it ran properly. But point is, this is the grown-up choice. The alternative to this is obviously a GTI. It's not a sedan, but it's still a Golf, it's still a hatchback, and it kind of gives you a few extra fizzes. Anyhow, the bottom line is that this car has no real faults other than being a lesser sport compact car. But in every other metric, it's a bargain, a super fun vehicle to drive, and a comfortable one at that. And now the WRX. I'm gonna harsh my mellow now, and I couldn't be happier about it. Look, this is how I see it, okay? The answer to what sport compact car always begins with WRX. Case closed. For $31,000, you will not get more power, all-wheel drive, and a sense of all-conquering, robust performance in any other car. And I do mean that. That's why the answer begins here. And then you evaluate and discover what the other options are. I mean, immediately just driving off in the WRX, I mean, I can feel every nook and cranny, pebble, twig in the road being filtered through the seat, my butt, my spine, my hands, and I absolutely love the car for it. I cannot fault it because that's what I want in the WRX. It is so familiar, so perfect, so good. And look, horizontally opposed, 4-cylinder engine, 2-liter turbocharged, 271 horsepower, yeah, up 3 from the last car, whatever, blah, 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 at 5,600 RPM and 258 pound-feet of torque from 2,000 to 5,200 RPM. And which means that with all-wheel drive, Oh, there's a bad bump here. Oh. With all-wheel drive and a proper launch, this car will hit 100 kilometers per hour in about 5.5 seconds, half a second faster than the GLI. In fact, if you think about it, I mean, the Elantra N might be a little bit faster, and maybe, you know, like a 5.3, 0 to 100, give or take, but it's considerably more expensive. And then that leaves, what, the Golf R, which is a high 4-second car maybe, but it's a hell of a lot more expensive. The next Civic Type R should be a 5-ish second car. So not only is it a bargain with all-wheel drive, but it's one of the fastest, close to one of the more powerful cars in this segment to boot. How can you possibly argue against that? And I mean, one of the great things about this car too is the torque is almost omnipresent, and contrary to the previous WRX, I mean, this thing will pull to redline and beyond. Like, it's just a superb driving experience. Now, yes, and the brakes, contrary to the GLI, yeah, I forgot about that for a half second. Brake pedal feel is horrible, response is wooden and delayed. The GLI is far more responsive when it comes to that. As far as steering, the weight between the two cars is very similar. Comfort versus, you know, non-adjustable steering in this car. But I mean, I was, you know, I said every twig and pebble in the road and all that. I mean, the chassis, the suspension is tuned to do WRX things. And thanks to the new global platform, it can handle it now. I mean, you don't have ridiculous rattles or all kinds of hopping and skipping going on. It just rolls, it just goes. I mean, look, the bottom line, it's not very complicated. In this segment, the answer begins with WRX. You want something very refined? Well, then the answer is GLI, because no other car in this segment is as cosseting and calming as the GLI, but with the ability to, you know, give you some serious fun performance. I was about to say somewhere in between, but that's not fair to the Civic Si. The Civic Si is different than all the others. It gives you this rawness with the precision and refinement in the controls that you only get in a Honda product. For that, the Civic Si is irreplaceable. But it's more expensive than this, like $2,000, give or take. And it's only front-wheel drive, if that matters to you. Look, WRX is, to me, is the final answer. Even though I would have normally jumped on a GTI as being the sole answer, but I mean, I want to believe that, you know, one day, I don't know, what am I trying to say? All-wheel drive to me is critical. Yes, I bought a Civic Type R, it's only front-wheel drive. It doesn't go out in the winter. She's a garage queen. It's terrible, it's a waste, I know. But for the price, the performance, there's no way to beat this car. Less expensive Elantra in line can't keep up with this. It just can't. And that's it, there's your answer. Final answer, WRX.